Okay, well, we are joined once again um, by Dr. Andrea Lashevsky. She's a recent graduate here at Michigan State University in the AFRI department, and she's talked a little bit about some of her other research, and this is the third of her presentations. So, Andrea, go ahead and take it away.
All right, so we're going to talk about convenience food and the demand for food diversity. So we know that in the US, consumers, people in general, are just really busy. Every day we work about 8 hours on average. We spend close to an hour commuting and then about another 2 hours on household chores. So it doesn't leave a lot of time for other activities. We've also found that households have more individualistic lifestyles. So, on average, households have about 2.5 people in them, and 40% of all US households are made up of only 1 to 2 individuals. So, because of these factors, households are turning more to convenience foods. So, convenience foods are any type of food that has preparation or processing added to it that leads to time savings. So, you can think of things like TV dinners or the bagged lettuce and chicken that you see on the slides. So, this is a huge $363 billion industry in the US, and it's had a lot of sales growth, about 12% from 2010 to 2015. So, convenience foods can allow consumers to have greater diversity in their diet. So, by food diversity, what we mean is that you're basically eating a greater variety or total number of foods in your diet. So, convenience foods can help improve this diversity in a number of ways. One is economies of scale in food production. So, for someone in a single person household to make the fruit salad that you see on the slide, they'd have to buy all of those individual fruits that are also shown. So basically, they would be making several servings of an item when they only want to eat one, and they'd have to eat fruit salad, every day for a week or end up throwing away that fruit salad. So either way, producing a greater variety of these dishes would be more expensive for that single person household versus a large household. And having a diverse diet can also be a serious time commitment. So the greater variety of meals you prepare, the more time you'll need to spend meal planning, shopping, cooking, and cleaning up. So convenience foods can kind of help reduce these time costs and let consumers increase the variety of foods they consume. And then also, households aren't that great at cooking. A lot of people don't know how to cook a large variety of dishes, so convenience foods can kind of broaden the number of foods that households eat. So based on this, the research objective for this study is to adjust a systems demand model to analyze food variety's effect on a household's demand for convenience foods. And we really want to focus on that relationship between a household size and food variety. So to answer this question, we use a new data set, which the IRI home scan data from 2012. So this is a panel data set. What we mean by panel is it has two different dimensions. So the first is the household dimension. We have 100,000 households, and these households use a scanning device that you can see in the pictures to keep track of all the food items they purchase, and they record this each week. So that's the second dimension of a panel data set is time. So we have 52 weeks of observations for each of these households. So that, again, this data is self-reported. They use this scanning tool to record their purchases. And they also complete surveys to give some information on their demographics like income and age. So with this data, we had to categorize each of the food purchases made by a household into different food categories. So for non-convenience foods, we had 4 categories that were based on the MyPlate guidelines, your basic food groups, produce, protein, grains, and dairy. And then we classified convenience foods into 3 categories. So things that were ready to cook, meaning you have to have some skill in being able to prepare the item. Ready to heat, which you just need to put in the microwave or the oven, and ready to eat, meaning you could just open the package and eat the item. So in order to answer our questions, we made a food variety index. And again, what this is basically doing is kind of counting up the number of different food items that you eat. So it's showing how varied your diet is. Then we put this food variety index into a complex math model called the almost ideal demand system. So what this is doing is basically showing us for households that have preference for food variety, how does that affect their demand for convenience food or how much convenience food they're consuming. So what we find is that households that prefer having a diverse diet or eating a lot of different foods have increased demand for all three types of convenience foods, and that this demand is greater for smaller households as opposed to those larger households. And then we also confirm past findings that convenience food demand increases as your income increases, that convenience food is own price elastic, and that households substitute between basic ingredients like fruits and vegetables for things like convenience foods. So this has several implications for convenience food manufacturers and also the retailers that are selling convenience food. So basically, it's giving them a better understanding of which consumer groups are demanding and purchasing their products. So what we found was that individuals who prefer a more varied diet or variety seekers and smaller households um, tend to purchase greater amounts of convenience food. So these would be a target segment for those manufacturers and retailers. So this has implications for their marketing campaigns in terms of how they advertise their products, both in and out of store, and then also maybe how they decide to package and label their products as well.
Great. Well, thank you for that presentation. We appreciate that. Quickly, kind of a general question on thinking about the IRI scanner data. How is that working with that data different than working with like the secondary USDA data from the other presentations you've made?
Yeah, so the IRI data is much larger data set than the food apps data I talked about in the other paper. So instead of 4,800 households, we have 100,000 and over 1 million different food purchases. So it's huge. So for me, one of the challenge was really learning how to work with these really large data sets called big data. So part of the problem is with so many observations, you can't look through them. You really need to write computer code and programs to work with the data. So for me, that was kind of a challenge and something that I had to learn more about in order to actually use the data.
Interesting. That sounds a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So from a little more specific application of your research. So for example, what types of food-related businesses might benefit most? So based on what you did, would it be a grocer, a convenience store, online delivery? Who might benefit the most from this?
I think that the manufacturers of the convenience food items would likely benefit the most. From what I see right now, they don't really focus on this variety component of convenience food items they produce very much. So they're not advertising, by eating a TV dinner, you're increasing the variety you get in your diet. So for these households that are seeking that, that'd be something really great to highlight in their advertisements or maybe on the package it'll say contains 15 different ingredients, so it's really highlighting the variety that the dish would be providing somebody. So I think for them it's providing them a new way to essentially market their products.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that. So, one more question, and this is more of a technical question, but just hoping for some clarity. So, as economists, we work with elasticities all the time, but could you explain just a little bit more what you mean by convenience food is own price elastic?
Yeah, so basically what it means is that when the price of convenience food increases, a household's expenditures on that convenience food item will decrease significantly. So it's kind of the idea that convenience food is more of a luxury good than it is a necessity. So when the price goes up, consumers are substituting for raw ingredients, things like vegetables or meat that you could turn into a meal yourself instead of buying that pre-made convenience food item.
Oh, very cool, very helpful. Okay, well, thank you again to Dr. Andrea Lashevsky for these presentations, and we will wrap up this webinar.